So in my last video, I talked about branding and how important branding is to your career and being able to stand out from the pack as a school leader. Um, and some people are probably thinking like, wait a minute, this is so um, counterintuitive to what leadership is supposed to look like. It should be about just the school community, the kids, and and doing everything you need to do to make sure the school is functioning properly. However, branding is a big part of that because one of the things that I learned my first year as a principal from my superintendent at the time was, what are you doing to make sure you stand out from other schools? What are you doing to make sure that you are set aside, set apart, so that when people talk about your school, there's an emotional connection, there is a want and need to make sure that their child goes to your school. And beyond that, once you have that in place, as far as that clear identity, that brand of your school, and of course you have to make sure it's backed up with quality within the school, what's happening in there, the culture of the school, the academic performance of the students in the school, how the teachers are teaching, all that is important. But however, you can have all those things, but if no one is considering your school for their child, then you're gonna have a hard time. And there's a lot of schools out there that are great schools, but they have a hard time with enrollment, especially like in a city like New York, where literally parents can, make enough noise to make sure their child gets to the school that they want their child to go to, and not wherever the placement center wants to put them, the enrollment center wants to put them. So what is it about your school? So I'm going to share with you. I'm going to do four things that beyond your own personal brand that needs to happen with your school to ensure that people remember your school. Number one, the name of your school is very, very important. Very, very important. And how the name of your school is being messaged. If your school has one of those long, elongated names, and it's like trying to recite, Shakespearean poetry with your mouth full of marbles, then you have to re-ask yourself, not necessarily change the name of the school, but however, is there an acronym that you can do for the school? Is there a particular word in the name of your school that you can stand on? For example, my last school was John Jay School for Law. I affectionately refer to the school as just law. Because it's very simple. I mean, yes, people might say, well, but there's so many schools for laws out there. But I always say law. And in my emails, I type out law in caps, LAW. To the point people ask me, what does law stand for? Before I left, we were definitely in the process of trying to figure out like a motivational phrase that can be used. They can utilize the acronym, not acronym, but you can utilize LAW as the basis of that saying or that phrase. So law, so it's funny because when you're in the personal community, when someone says law, they know exactly what school they're talking about. And the funny thing, Brooklyn has several schools for law. New York City has several schools that have law or legal studies in their name. But at least for me, within my sphere of influence, people knew when they heard law, they knew they were talking about John Jay School for Law. My school before that, School for Mathematics, Science, Technology, through Arts. Shout out to Principal Dotel. When I first arrived there, the school was MS 318. There was an issue there, but at that time, I remember meeting with the borough safety director. The director for the safety in that region of schools. For those of you who are not familiar with New York City and us being split up into boroughs. So for the Bronx, I remember meeting the person who was in charge of safety, and he said to me, "Do you know you're inheriting probably the most disruptive middle school in the Bronx, if not one of the worst middle schools in the city?" And I said to myself, "But what do you mean?" Because I worked in schools that had difficulties, but never worse. And what was said to me was this: in that neighborhood, 318, which is the name, which is the number designation of the school. MS 318, middle school 318, has problems with, you know, with kids from 800. And I was like, 800? What school is that? They're like, no, it's a building down the block whose number, the building number is 800. So the kids living in that building have 318. I was like, okay. Then they're like, then there's another subset, you know, of a gang, 1090, you know, who also have problems. So I'm sitting here thinking, you know, MS 318, middle school 318 has problems with 800 and 1090, and I'm sitting there getting like, wait a minute, are we a school or are we a gang? The school's actual name is the School for Mathematics, Science, Technology through Arts. Mathematics, Science, and Technology through Arts. Well, that's a very long name to say. You know, think about it. What school you go to? Science, Technology, blah, 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 blah. So I looked at the acronym. Mathematics, Science, Technology through Arts, MSTA. And I was like, that flows well. MSTA. 38. So it's either MS 318 or MS 318 or MSTA. And MSTA, to me, I felt like I could build a brand around that and move people away from using 318 and kind of like reinventing ourselves. You know, because as kids were graduating, kids who were around a lot of those problems, I didn't want the moniker of 318 as a school with issues to continue. And I tell you what I did. I branded the mess out of MSTA. T-shirts, hoodies, new signage. You know, it was the school's mascot was the Bears. So we had a new logo with the bear everywhere, the home of the mighty Bears, MSTA, on T-shirts, on hoodies, on hats, everywhere. The first year, people were like, what is this? They were like, what is this MSTA stuff? Second year, it became normalized. By the third year, I had parents who that's the other problem the school had. Parents removing their kids from the school, you know, because they were like, it's too violent, it's not safe for my child. By the third year, the beginning of the third year, parents were lined up outside trying to get their kids into this new charter school. And I'm like, we're not a charter school. We are a public school with a private school feel. That's what I would always say. We are a public school with a private school feel. And parents were bringing their kids in there to the point where parents were like, you know, that new school in the building. That's what they were saying. That new school, it was the same school. It's just that we rebranded everything. And it wasn't difficult. It was just making sure that I had my mind focused on what I wanted the school to look like, to feel like, to sound like. And it was a lot of work. You know, we still had our issues. But however, the one thing I can say that I was proud of by the time I left that school was kids loved their school. I didn't have kids talking about I want to leave or parents saying I'm moving my kid out. As a matter of fact, I had siblings coming. I had cousins coming. We had multiple families in the school. They were related to each other, you know, and because we became like the best secret that wasn't a secret, okay? Branding. And the other part of that too is that I had to really reinforce this branding message, this rebranding message with my teachers and my staff. Like they had to always be pushing like this new identity until it wasn't a new identity, and that's why branding is extremely important. So, as a school leader, you know, you need to have your own brand. How do you stand? How does the world see you as a leader? But now on the other end of things, you need to also make sure that your school has a very clear image that's portrayed to the world that sets it aside. Because once you start to do that, you can now start to, like, you know, shift things and move things in a way where the school becomes something better, you know, reputation-wise. But the most important thing is, listen, you can change the clothes. You can put, you know to say, you can put a lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. You could change all the exterior stuff. If the core of what's happening in classrooms is not stabilized, then you always have an issue. So always remember that. You want to make sure the instruction is top-notch. And even if it's not, you're moving mountains to make sure instruction is top-notch. Because once the kids in your building, they have to perform, right? They got to perform. So yeah, branding. It's not just you, it's also your school. And hopefully, if you do it right, you become intertwined with the school, and the school becomes intertwined with you. So when they see you, they see your school. All right, y'all. Talk to y'all soon. Peace.